I've been trying to keep my head above water and just still be living a normal life, but I've been really struggling behind closed doors. This morning, I had to go to a food bank. I don't want everyone knowing that I'm failing, but I'm doing this video because I feel like someone's got to, and I'm desperate.
For as long as I can remember, I've always been sort of on the breadline and going from paycheck to paycheck. But because of that, as soon as a bill came out and tax credits got cut, it just hit me really, really hard, and it was just a downward spiral that I couldn't get out of. March, April was when it very first started, and I thought, right, and I was getting just over my overdraft, and I was getting paid, and it was going back into it, and I was getting paid, and then I was getting back into it. So for the last sort of 3, 4 months, it's been dive bombing, and I haven't been I've been trying to figure out how to get out of it, but unfortunately it's been getting deeper and deeper. Because I get paid monthly and I pay my rent and, you know, the big main bills, then I kind of rely on that weekly tax credit to sort of buy food, things like that. And it was because I was over my overdraft, it was being eaten. And so I was sort of asking my parents, like, can I come over for tea tonight? Can I make a packed lunch at your house for River? We're really short on things. And it was just, you know, you always have those cans in the cupboard, you've always got that sort of, but that had been depleted to the point where there was like, right, okay, there's not really anywhere to go now. I'm gonna have to go to my mum and dad. And that's why they were looking for me, because they knew I didn't really have many options at the time.
And when you walked in, how did you feel?
It was strange, like we didn't really know where it was, we couldn't see it. So, you know, there's that nervous, like, oh, where is it? Are we going to the right place? I was already crying, like nervous and just feeling defeated, like I didn't want to have to be here. It was my day off that week, you know, I'd been hard at work the day before. I'd got out of work a little bit late the night before, and then the next morning, that's when I was going. And when I walked in the door, it just struck, there was 2 people there, but there was a huge window where everyone could see you, and that shouldn't matter. I mean, you're desperate, you shouldn't care, but you can't help but think it's on a busy street, you don't know who's there. I work at a hospital that's main to, who am I going to see? It was really, yeah, it was overwhelming. So I got some spaghetti, rice pudding, which I haven't had for years. They gave me some jam, some bread. They offered me tea and coffee, and they offered me like a big bottle of like fizzy pop, but I actually said no, because one, tea and coffee I can live without, and fizzy pop, my son hates fizzy drinks, and I didn't need it, if you know what I mean. And they were I think they were almost annoyed that I was like, no, it's okay, I don't need those bits. And they were trying to offer me squash, and I was like, no, it's okay, like, yeah. So they did, I got like quite a bit of cupboard food, if that makes sense. I felt uncomfortable. I felt like I wanted to not be seen. That feeling where you want to just camouflage into a wall. And when you've got bright pink hair and tattoos and are already crying, that's really hard to do. The volunteers there were really polite. They were really lovely. They could see I was in distress. You know, you could tell. One, I was making them uncomfortable probably because they weren't sure what to do, and 2, they wanted me to feel better. They were offering me a cup of tea. They were like, oh, just sit down. But because I felt like they weren't prepared for me, they didn't really know what to do with me, and I could feel that, and I didn't know where to put myself. I didn't know where to go. The supervisor kind of seemed already stressed out, so I think he was just like, oh, like, annoyance, just do as you're told. I should have known the procedure when I didn't, and it just was, I felt humiliated. And I know I shouldn't use that word because it was a charity and it's somewhere that I needed, but I can't help the feeling that I had and the panic of, am I going to know any of these volunteers? Is, like, what are they thinking of me? Everyone's looking at me. It was just really hard.
Did you ever imagine for a second that you would be in that situation?
No, because I've always been really, really specific on, I want to work. I don't care if it kind of, whether I'd be the same at home or at work as a single parent, I've always been like, well, I'm working. Like, I want a good work ethic. It helps my mental health. It gives me a reason to get up in the morning more so. It's good for my son to see that work equals money. So I've always been very, very strong on that fact and never sat at home and done nothing ever. So it was a shock to me that I'd got to that point, and I did feel like there must be somewhere else. I mustn't have to go here. But it was my only option at that point, it really was. And if I hadn't had my parents before that, I probably would have been there before at some stage. I've had quite bad struggles with depression and anxiety over the years. I take medication every day, and I have done for a long time. I'm quite lucky that I'm in a position now that I know what works for me, and if I feel triggered, if I'm feeling really low, I have my little things that I do that help me, whether it's read a book, draw, paint a painting, get out of the house in some fashion. It definitely, on Friday, I was definitely feeling like, oh my God, like I don't want to, I could see the black spiral of sort of depression, like right there. Like I could have quite easily stepped into it. And possibly if all of this hadn't happened over the last few days since that, maybe I would have gone down there. And I really do feel for people that, you know, mental health is everywhere. People are struggling, people are depressed. It's a real problem. And I'm lucky that I've had those tools because I've had problems in the past and I figured that out and I was already on the right medication. But for people that aren't on that, I can really easily imagine like just not getting out of bed. What's the point? And I could really, really feel for anyone that's in that position. I've had some lovely positive reactions. Even, you know, it's uncomfortable when I've gone into work since then and like you don't know what to say. But I've had, you know, that someone just putting their hand on my shoulder and be like, we've all been there, like, do you need anything? People have been brilliant. I've had messages from people that are in the same position as me, that have been in the same position as me, which is lovely because you just get that conversation going like, well, what have you been doing? What, you know, and you don't feel alone. I have had a lot of backlash as well and some nasty messages about I shouldn't have ever had children. I shouldn't be putting myself out there, moaning about things. Just lots of negative, that I should not have pink hair and have never dyed my hair ever. And it's almost like if you use a food bank and you're struggling, you should always have been like that. Like you've never had a life before, you never have a life again. How dare you have ever enjoyed yourself? How dare you have ever dyed your hair? How dare you have ever been to a music gig or anything, any photo that's out there of me? And it's like, well, I haven't always, like this happened in a blink of an eye. And I just kind of, you can't defend yourself in every comment, but it's kind of bizarre sometimes how they just seem so black and white. Like they can't get their head around that someone can be 1 minute just enjoying their life and trying to go through things, and the next minute, yeah, you've got to go to a food bank because we've got no cushion. And they just don't seem to understand that we're all easily there.